The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
Next up on the Bronx Journal, poet and educated activist John Chance Acevedo, site manager of Jumpstart at Lehman College, Tanisa Dixon, and owner and decorator of MDV Custom Cakes, Melody Velez.
This is the Bronx Journal, the television edition of the online multilingual community newspaper. Published by the students and faculty of the Journalism, Communication, and Theater Department at Lehman College. On the internet, on the radio, and on television, the Bronx Journal covers the issues concerning the people of the Bronx.
Hello and welcome to the Bronx Journal. I'm Angel Pinto. Our next guest has made noise in the poetry community. Besides mentoring a 12-year-old poet prodigy, he has carved out his own niche. He has performed in the top poetry venues all across the city, gaining plenty of recognition for his infusion of comedy and life's trials and tribulations to reflect on his own experiences. His projects with inner city kids and community-based organizations are well noted as well. Here today to speak about his experiences as a poet, educator, and activist in our borough, welcome to the stage, John Chance Acevedo. John, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
I got to start off with a first question. How did you get the middle name Chance? Is that a middle name?
No, it's my stage name, it's my pen name. When I was in high school, played on the basketball team, and being 5'4", you know, at that time, it was very difficult to get over the big men. So I went, started playing, and something happened where I went over a 6-footer, and the coach was like, you need to calm down. I did it about 3 or 4 times, and he was like, stop taking those chances. Then he fumbled and said, Chance, stop taking those shots, and the name stuck. So the next day in school, everybody started calling me Chance.
All right, so it stuck with you.
Yeah.
All right, well, the key question today is, how did you get into poetry? Did it start off with something, is the love of music? Do you want to be a musician or artist when you were younger?
I started doing poetry to get away from everything that was going on at home. So for a lot of us who grow up in the poor communities, we don't have the escapes everyone else has. So one of my teachers, 3rd grade teacher, she read a book about a young boy, and she ended the book on a cliffhanger, and I was just like, well, what happened at the end of the book? She said, write your own ending. You can write your own ending. The writer has a license to do whatever they want. So I wrote a story about a girl named Jennifer in 3rd grade. The next day, every Jennifer in the school was called to the main office. And I was just like, wow, like if I can do this in the 3rd grade, I need to keep doing this. So I wrote stories about what was going on at home, but changing everyone's name. Because
so
at that time,
in trouble.
Yeah, so at that time I knew, like, if I told people what I was going through, then they'll take me away from my house. You know, my mother was being abused, and I was there taking care of my mother. So at that time, you know, you're in the 3rd grade, y'all are 8, 7 years old, you're thinking, I have to be home to protect my mother.
Of course.
When you're that young, you think you're a superhero and you can protect everyone. So that's how I got into it. I started writing stories. Fast forward to my college days, a young lady opened up my notebook, and she was like, I really like that poem. I was like, well, why are you reading my stuff? She was like, the wind opened it. I was just like, girl, you don't get out of here. So I started reading. She invited me to a poetry open mic, and I wasn't really into it because my thing was like, I write for myself. I don't write for anyone else. Okay. Then I get back home, and one of the biggest drug dealers on my block, he's like, yo, I do a poetry show. I'm like, blood, nothing about you tells me you know anything about poetry. He was like, give me your email, I invite you. So I was like, nothing about you tells me you even know what a computer looks like. So I sent him my email address. He sent me an invitation. I went to the show, and as they say, it all started from there. You know, I did 2 poems, I went to the show twice, and then after that, the lady who used to run the show, she called me and she was just like, I need you to host this event for me.
That's great.
And I was nervous. I was just like, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into.
It's an interesting beginning. What is, if you could use one word to describe your poetry style, what would it be?
I like to call it edutainment, because I like to educate and entertain at the same time. I use a lot of comedy. I use a lot of real life situations in my pieces, and everything that I write about, it's always comedy, and it's a message behind every poem I write, whether it's a funny poem, whether it's a serious poem. Even when I'm doing poems about domestic violence, I find humor in something. There's always a way to make every serious situation somewhat funny. And I guess I do it that way because it makes it easier for people to swallow that tough pill
when it's
a lot of the time.
When it's done in a comedy way. What type of issues and themes and messages you try to convey in your poems to your viewers, the fans, or whoever's reading the poetry?
A lot of my performances, a lot of the poems that I write about is really about education. It's about children. It's about well, it depends on the time. You know, when I was younger, it was all, you know, politics and hating the government and all this craziness. But then as you mature, you start to realize, you know, your poetry writes as you grow. So now a lot of what I write about is my children. I write about my children. I write about my wife. I write about love, which is weird because, you know, I'm too tough to write about love. So I'm just like, I'm not doing that. But now I write about love. I write about family, the idea of family.
So things that are important to you, close to you at heart. That's respectable.
Kind of like musicians. They write about what they know. I write about what I know.
All right. Well, upon my research, I figured out that you mentored a 12-year-old poet prodigy. Let the viewers know who is Kiani Popcorn Marshall.
Oh, Kiani Popcorn Marshall. Kiani is a young writer who she was brought to my attention through a show that I used to host in the Bronx called Urban Voices Heard. She came in through the door courtesy of Latanya Devon. Latanya Devon brought her in, and you know, this is a young girl who wants to write. Help her out as much as you can. So Kiani got on stage and she did a poem, and I said to myself, she's 11. She's not supposed to be writing like that. And one thing led to another. She had a family support. She had everyone's support, and she just kept coming to the shows. So we kept molding her into becoming a better writer, into becoming a better artist. And how do you do that? You show her how you do it wrong, and then you show her how it's done right. Luckily for me, because I know so many poets, I called a friend who goes by the name of Poetic Assassin, and he came and he performed at the same show Kiani was performing. Kiani was like, I love him. That's my favorite artist by far. And they build a relationship. And anytime she has questions, she'll reach out to me. Her father will reach out to me. I like to give people an opportunity to share their voice because I feel they have something to say. So anytime an opportunity comes up and they're looking for a young writer, a young poet, that's my go-to person. I call Kiani. Kiani, I need you at this event. Can you make it? And her dad is just like, sure, we're there.
That's
you know,
great.
and it's not just Kiani. It's Kiani. It's her mom. It's her siblings. It's her dad. It's a whole fiesta. The whole family shows up to show her support.
So what specific advice did you give to her, or do you feel, what role did you play in her success?
I feel like I have very little to do with her success. I think kids that age, they have to know what they want and they have to go for it. So for her, the only thing I always told her was you have to be true to yourself.
Of course.
If you feel like that's what you want to write about, then you write about it. Don't ever feel like I can't say this because people may take it the wrong way. So I've always told her, you write from the heart, and find your voice. Too many times you have a lot of young artists who want to sound like older artists, or who want to emulate the people who they like, and that takes away from
their
them as an artist.
And
so I always tell them, just go for what you know, and write your truth. No one can tell you it's not your truth. You have a poetic license to write whatever you want.
I agree.
And do your research on whatever you're writing about, because if someone questions you, you already know how to back it up.
Yeah. Just to add on to that, what specific advice or tips you give to aspiring poets and Kiani's children in her position?
Same thing I tell Kiani, like, find your own voice. Don't try to sound like the hottest poet who's out now, because people will see you and say, you know what, that's not you. You're trying to be this person. A lot of times I tell the artists, anytime you want to do your poem, you have to speak from a place that you're comfortable with. Don't ever think that you have to sound like this person to have a voice, or you have to sound like that person to have a voice. You have to do your own thing. You have to make sure that when you write from a place that's comfortable for you. People have different ways that they write. Some people like to listen to music when they write, so a lot of their poems sound like rap bars. Some people like to just sit around the house, listen to jazz, so their poem has a certain flow to it. So it really depends on what they're going to. I just tell them to be true to themselves. Don't try to use words that are not in your everyday vocabulary, because people will pull that card on you, like, okay, so what does that mean?
And then
you're just like, it rhymed with this word, so I used it. And that's the other thing. None of your poems really have to rhyme.
It has to just convey a specific message. So besides mentoring and younger students, you also perform yourself. You're part of an all-Latino Spanish collective.
Yes.
Give the viewers a little information on that.
So I'm part of an all-Latino poetry collective called El Grito de Poetas. We've been a collective for almost 9 years now. Our goal was just to educate and entertain the masses, the people who looked like us. A lot of the times when we would go to a poetry show or an open mic, there was very little Latino representation at any of these shows. And the Latino representation that was around the poetry community were already established artists. So one of the things that myself and another young lady decided to do was let's have an audition, so to speak, and see what's going on. A lot of Latinos came out to perform. We started out with a lot of people. Some people branched off and did their own thing, which was great. You know, it's all about building that community and showing each other support. But right now we have 5 core members. It's Advocate of Words. He's a poet. He was part of the Nuyorican Slam team.
Okay.
We have Chilo. He's an MC. He's a social studies teacher. And he's an educator. He's a rapper. He's a hard worker. He's a beast. So he does a lot of shows with on his own regarding hip hop. But when it's kind of like Transformers. When it's trying to come together, we all come together. We have Simply Rob, who's a HIV/AIDS activist. He's part of a documentary that's been.
Seems like you got a group of just well-talented overall individual poets and stuff like that.
Tito and True, or the other 2 members, and everybody does their own individual thing, but it's all family when we come together and do shows.
That's good to know. All right, well, you spoke about auditions and how you guys basically started. What about prospective members? How do you, if somebody wants to join the collective or the group, how do they go about that?
Right now, we like to call it the secret society of getting members. What we do is we want to harbor and help a lot of the younger artists become better writers. A lot of the times when we're looking for a new member, or if we're looking for a new member, we want to see what they're like as an individual and what they're like as an artist. Some people are great artists, but they suck at being people. Like, they're horrible individuals. So what we do is, if we see someone who is, someone we should be looking into to become a member of the group, we go to their shows. We'll pop up. We'll show up. We'll invite them to other shows. We'll come break bread with us, come have dinner with us, and things like that. And just to see what they are as individuals, because anytime you deal with one person, there's 2 personalities you have to attack.
So you want a well-rounded individual, and that leads to my next question with your work with Latinos NYC and how you guys are constantly giving back to the community. Speak about your work with them.
Latinos NYC.
You're a board member on top of that, too.
I'm a board member and a volunteer with Latinos NYC. A lot of what we do is give back to the community. Right now, we're hosting a toy drive, and our toy drive is we give 250 toys to an after-school program that houses children who are part of the ACS program. So what we do is we put together these shows, we put together open mics, we put together mini concerts, and all the shows that we do, all the money that we collect from there, very little goes to our pocket to get to and from. A lot of the money goes to buying supplies, paying for artists to come out and give of their time. A lot of the artists who we call also, they give from their time. Definitely. They don't charge us anything. So we collect the money and buy toys. We go to the ACS after school program, and for 3 Kings Day we donate all the toys. We feed the homeless the third Saturday of every month at Tompkins Square Park down in the Lower East Side. And we're not in a soup kitchen. We're not in a fancy kitchen. We're not in someone's house. We're out in the street, right? On the street, rain, sleet, snow, hail, whatever's going on outside, we're out there. Summer, winter, like if someone's sick, we find another volunteer to come and help out. We feed about 200 people in about 45 minutes.
That's commendable.
A burger and a juice. I mean, and some of these people, that's all they're gonna get. But we try to do our best by giving back to the community. We all weren't saints, you know. We all aren't saints. The CEO of the organization, you know, he's a former, he's currently part of a gang, but he's left that life alone. He was a former drug addict. He's cleaned his life, and his biggest thing is just to give back to the community he used to rape and pillage. So a lot of the times what we do is we let him tell his story so people understand. No, it doesn't matter what you're going through. Somebody's going through something worse than you, and no matter who you are, everybody can turn around. Well,
we got to commend you on the great work you do with the community.
Thank you.
So I think the people would love to hear something from you. I understand you got a little thing you're gonna recite with us about your daughters today.
Yeah, let me. Okay, so my thing was always, you hear a lot of young ladies out in the street, and you know, a lot of them don't respect themselves.
Of course.
But they always demand that respect. So I started writing a poem for my daughters. I have 3 daughters, and my wife is currently expecting another child. So whatever that's gonna be, you know. So I say, the poem goes, Dear daughter, I wish you knew just how beautiful you were, muñeca. Please don't allow these $5 people with $10 words fool you when they tell you, hey, did it hurt when you fell from heaven? You tell them, silly, angels don't fall from heaven. They descend gracefully. When they ask you and tell you that you are the most beautifulest girl in the world, you tell them thank you and that you appreciate them. And also tell them they must be well-traveled since they went all the way around the world and chose you to be the most beautifulest. Please don't be stank. Yes, stank is different than stink. When they tell you you are pretty, tell them you were smart. When these people try to tell you and they want to buy you pretty things, tell them no, you're okay. And you're good because you want for nothing. And also tell them that you have uncles that just got out of jail and they have no problem going back. When they tell you that they want to rearrange the alphabet and put you and I together, you look at them straight in their face and you say, listen here, mister, that sounds German. And I don't do German. That's something I wrote.
That was great, man. And it definitely shows the comedy and the real life tribulations you talk about. Well, let the people know where they can contact you. And I know you host events, so let the people know where they can reach you and about the events you host.
So I do a lot of events throughout the city. You can contact me on latinosnyc.org. You can go to elgritodepoetas.com. You can email me at chance_10025@yahoo.com. You know, I'm very reachable. I am on Facebook, so if you find me on Facebook, all my information is there. I'm very public. So, you know, it's just what I do, trying to make my dent in the world before I have to leave it, you know. And I love what I do. It's never work when you love what you do.
I agree. Well, it was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having
we'll be
me.
back with more of the Bronx Journal.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared. Sometimes my parents have to take me to the hospital. I feel like a fish with no water.
You know how to react to their asthma attacks. Here's how to prevent them. Call 1-866-NO-ATTACKS. Visit www.noattacks.org or call your doctor. Because even one attack is one too many.
Big dreams and good grades aren't enough to get into college. There are actual steps you need to take. Finding someone who can help is the first and most important. For the next steps, go to knowhowtogo.org.
Hello, and welcome back to the Bronx Journal. I'm Carlos Piantini. Would you like your child or a child you know to learn to read before he or she starts school? Jumpstart is a national early education organization that is committed to helping preschool children develop the language and literacy skills they need to be ready for kindergarten. Now to tell us about Jumpstart, joining us is the site manager of Jumpstart at Lehman College, Tanisha Dixon. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Good. Tanisha, can you tell us a little bit about what is Jumpstart?
Sure. Jumpstart, as you mentioned, is a national early literacy organization. We work with college students in particular and community members to help children at the preschool level develop the key skills that they need to enter kindergarten. So not only the language and literacy skills they need, but also the social and emotional development that they need to function well in the classroom, but also to get along with their peers and be productive members in our society as they get older.
Okay, good, excellent. And when did Jumpstart get started?
Jumpstart started back in 1993 at a college campus at Yale University. There were 2 college students who worked at a summer camp, and they saw the power of connecting with children on a one-to-one level at summer camp. And so they wanted to bring that connection to the classroom during the school year. So they got a couple of friends together on their college campus. They created a student club, which I imagine they called Jumpstart at the time, and they volunteered at a local Head Start in New Haven, Connecticut. And so they were able to work with the children one-on-one, read with them, really connect with the children, and in a one-to-one capacity. And so at the end of the school year, teachers noticed that the children who were being pulled out of the classroom and read with were showing improvement way more than the children who weren't being pulled out. And so I think those 2 college students really realized that they were onto something, and so they sort of grew it. And so now that we're entering our 20th year, we're really excited to talk about the growth that we've seen in our program. We work with over 80 colleges across the country, and so our work has taken off from Yale University in Connecticut to schools here in New York, but also across the country over to California, at Chicago, Florida. We're all over.
Good. And what is Jumpstart's main goal?
Our main goal is to help make sure that children are entering school prepared to succeed, and that's definitely in the language and literacy skills, but in that social context, in that emotional context, but really make sure that as children get older that they are productive in our society, that we're reducing some of the social ills that we're facing. Okay. So that can mean reducing incarceration rates, that means reducing the achievement gap that we're facing in this country, reducing crime, dropout crisis, and so we're answering a lot of different things when we're helping children learn at the preschool level.
Okay, excellent. And what are some of the benefits of Jumpstart?
Oh, there's so many benefits for Jumpstart. For the children are benefiting greatly. They are learning the key skills that they will need to not only enter kindergarten, but be successful at it. And so there's a drastic difference between children who attend preschool and children who don't. And so you often see that in the classroom in the way that they relate to each other, the way they follow directions, the way they even attend to a book. So knowing that it opens from left to right, yes. Knowing that the words are upright. And so you can definitely see the difference in children when they attend preschool education and when they don't. The benefit of Jumpstart for teachers in the classroom is that it lowers the adult-child ratio. So you have to imagine in a preschool classroom there's somewhere between 14 and 20 students and 1 teacher, maybe an assistant teacher. When Jumpstart comes into a classroom, a team of 5 to 8 college students, you dramatically reduce that adult-to-child ratio. So now you've got from 1 teacher to about 10 children. You're sort of you have up to 10 adults in a classroom with 20 children. So now we sort of reduce that ratio to about 1 to 3, and so we're hoping that every Jumpstart member is connecting with 3 children in the classroom to have that one-on-one support.
Okay, that's good, excellent. And how does Jumpstart help the community? Can you tell us a lot about that? So
Jumpstart helps the community in a number of ways. I can speak specifically in the Bronx. We host a number of community events that's designed to engage not only our children but our families. And so you know, that old adage that it takes a village to raise a child, and so the family is certainly the first teacher for a child. And so Jumpstart likes to host weekend events where families can bring their children, regardless of if they're in a Jumpstart program or not, and they can take advantage of the literacy programming that we're offering during the day. And so it almost recreates what's happening in the classroom. So there's a reading activity, there's circle time, songs, poems, games, and then there are some hands-on activities that are connecting what's happening in the story to different activities. So there might be an art activity, a science activity, maybe there's a dramatic play area where they're sort of pretending and sort of expanding what they've read in the story. And so it's really about, and then we also try to offer resources to take home. So for families that do attend the event, we try to do raffles, we give away books for children to have at home, and then most of our events we do a parent workshop. And so we usually have someone on site that gives tips on how to read with your children, how to connect with your children in an academic sense, but also to boost their learning at home. So that way school is not just limited to school.
Okay, that's good. You're not only teaching the children how to read, but during those events, you know, they have the time to share time with
Absolutely,
their parents.
yeah. And you have to think that there's so many parents that may work multiple jobs, or maybe they work a shift that doesn't allow them to spend the quality time that they want to with their children. And so we're grateful for the parents that do come and support our events, and they do come out because they really see the value of what their children are doing in school and are able to take those couple of hours out and sort of see their children light up when a book opens.
Okay, and what do you think is important that that our children read before they reach kindergarten?
It's really important for children to read before they enter kindergarten. Children's brains are a sponge, just like adult brains are. We, especially in New York City, there's just so many messages happening. We're walking down the street and we're sort of inundated with words everywhere. Words, pictures, sounds, adult voices, children's voices. And so children's brains are just sort of rapidly firing off. Yeah. And so when children are reading, it really allows them to focus on a particular area. It allows them to focus on words, letters that turn into words, that turn into paragraphs, into stories. And it's really important for children at an early age to get acquainted with reading and stories, and that stories have a beginning, middle, and end, and that they can be told by an author. And so those key pieces are important for children to understand that reading has a very valuable place in our world, and that it often becomes a separator between success as a young adult and even into adulthood.
Okay, and can you tell us about the difference of a child that is introduced to reading before they reach kindergarten to one who is not?
I can tell you in a couple of ways. So children who may not be exposed to reading before kindergarten, you can tell in the way that they attend to words and conversations. Reading also helps children in their conversational skills. So when children are reading a story, they realize that characters have conversations, that there's dialogue, and so they understand that, you know, everyone has sort of a point of view. And so you'll see that play out in a classroom where children who are in a classroom and they're reading and are active readers, you know, they sort of mimic what they read and what they see. And so you see that sort of in their play, but also in their day-to-day, the way they communicate with other children, with adults, the way they respond to teachers and authority figures. And so you'll start to see that as children get older, that children that weren't really reading when they were younger have a really hard time in other subjects. So in math, you have to be able to read a math problem to understand what it's saying. In writing, you need to understand how the letters are shaped to actually write an essay. Science even, right, to be able to make educated guesses about what's happening in the world. And so reading affects so many other areas for children that you find that children who aren't active readers when they're younger often are struggling in other areas in school.
And how does reading expand a child and imagination and how?
Reading allows children to put their world in perspective when they read. And I think about it in two ways. So children are exposed to what they know at home and then often, you know, what they know in school, right? And so children often find them as two separate experiences. So home is home, they're with their mom, their dad, maybe with their grandparents or siblings, and then school is school. They're with their friends, their buddies, they're with their teacher. And so they often have two separate worlds that happen. And then there's the world outside. And so it varies across the country. So here in New York, you know, our children are exposed to things that maybe the children that we work with in Chicago may be exposed to differently, or even in DC or in Boston. And so while some of our children here in New York might be exposed to tall buildings, buses and trains whizzing by. Some of our children in other neighborhoods may be exposed to maybe there's a pond nearby their school and there are ducks. And so the stories that they're reading in the classroom often are connected to experiences that they deal with every day. So a new baby in the house, working together, being friends, the weather's, the seasons changing. And so they're general themes that children can connect to just on a very basic level, but also honing in on experiences that are true to children at that age.
Okay, good. And Jumpstart is always working in the community, providing free books. What type of stories are told in these books?
So Jumpstart's national curriculum is based on some of the best research that's in early childhood education. And so the stories that have been chosen for our year-long curriculum, even to give out at community events, are based on, as I mentioned before, based on experiences that children are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So in the very beginning of the school year, our curriculum focuses on family and friends. And so all children have family, they have friends. And so the first few stories that we work in the fall semester talk about family, different family relationships. You have neighbors that live in the same building or next door, friends working together to make a pizza, for example. And then later on in the year, you see the curriculum develop into talking about the weather, about the seasons, about things that grow. So as it becomes spring, how plants grow, how animals grow outdoors. And so we talk about the world of colors, so children are learning their colors, and that red, blue, and yellow are colors, but magenta is also a color, and so is lavender, and that's where we're expanding vocabulary. So the stories that we pick are very intentional. They're intentional with a purpose to connect with children on a very basic level that they can, relate to, but also exposing them to things that they may not have seen before. And so, for example, children may read a story about a birthday party. Most children celebrate their birthdays in the home, but they may not understand how a piñata is made, for example, that's made out of paper and cardboard. And so a lot of our stories, do expose children to things that they may have never heard of or seen before, or allows them to take a step further in thinking about how the world works.
Okay, good, excellent. And do the children have the opportunity to read in another language, like Spanish or Italian? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Our curriculum is designed in English, and because that is the main language that our children do go to school in. However, we do realize that we need to meet the needs of our communities that we work with. So here in New York, there's a wide variety of languages that are spoken at home and even in school. And so here in the Bronx, we know that Spanish is a major language that's spoken in the home and even at school. Many of our children do come to school with maybe only speaking Spanish, or maybe they have very limited exposure to English. Oftentimes school is the only time they're exposed to English, and so we try to meet those needs by doing a few things. So the volunteers that we recruit on the college level, we hope that the volunteers do have some sort of bilingual or multilingual experience, and so I would say about at least half of our students do speak Spanish at home, or it's their native language. And then that sort of varies around the city. So I will say, like in the downtown Chinatown area, Mandarin is a very popular language amongst the Chinese American community, and so the college students that work at NYU and Pace, for example, we try to look for students that can speak that language, but at least have the empathy to understand what it's like to communicate in multiple languages. To speak to our community events, we try to offer books that are in English and Spanish, or English and whatever the main language is. We're really grateful for Pearson to be able to support us in that endeavor in providing multilingual books. We've even had projects where we've had volunteers translate books for us, where they'll print the text of the story on labels and stick them in the book. So there's the English and then another language. I had a really great time a few years back when I first started with Jumpstart, where we had a donation of books come in, and we had some translators come in and translate the story in Mandarin, and then also in Cantonese. So even though they're both dialects of Chinese, we were able to provide that resource to Chinese-speaking families at home.
Good. And one last question. On October 3rd, 2013, Jumpstart set a world record. What was that about?
So Read for the Record is our annual campaign to continue the conversation about the importance of early childhood education. And so I think most adults generally realize that reading to children is important. The children should read at home. They should read. They should be exposed to books. But I think there are an overwhelming majority of adults that don't realize how much low-income children are behind in this area in literacy and language development. And so Read for the Record is a chance for Jumpstart to expose the country and even the world to why early childhood is important. And so breaking the world record is simple. We try to break the world record of all adults and children reading the same book on the same day.
Wow.
It's a pretty simple concept, but it becomes so much more than that. It becomes adults reading with children the same story and getting the different story out of it every time. And so the last Read for the Record, that was in October, about 2.5 million adults and children around the world read the same story, the story called Otis by Lauren Long. And it's a story about a tractor who tries to save some of the animals on the farm after they're sort of drowning in the mud. And it's a really cute story about living on a farm, but you have to think, around the world, different children are exposed to different things. And so being able to break a world record like that with just such a simple concept is really powerful. And so Jumpstart's really proud to be able to have celebrities support that event. But the real key to Read for the Record is having adults connect with children and reading and understanding why reading is important.
Okay, great. And can you tell us your contact information? Maybe the parents who are watching us, who are watching us today, they wanna know a little bit more about.
Sure.
Jumpstart.
If you're interested in knowing more about Jumpstart, you can contact Carrie Osborne, who is our executive director. She can be reached at 212-868-2526, extension 19. You can also reach me at the site level if you're looking for opportunities here in the Bronx. My contact information, my phone number is 718-960-8078, and I can definitely connect people to resources in the area if they're looking for community events that are happening or if they're interested in a partnership with Jumpstart.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Tanisha,
Thanks
for coming today.
Me.
I think we have learned a lot, about why it's important to teach all our children to read before they reach kindergarten. And you, the viewers, don't move because we'll be right back with more of the Bronx Journal.
How'd it go?
Hey, how's it going?
Sir, are you okay?
What? Oh, this? It's probably nothing. I'm sure it'll go away.
Go away? But, sir, that can't be good.
No, it's cool, really.
Do you want a napkin or something?
Everything's fine. Thanks.
You wouldn't ignore this. So why ignore the signs of a stroke? At the first warning signs, call 911 immediately. Because time lost is brain lost.
Hello and welcome back to the Bronx Journal. I'm Arlena Alcantara. When we speak of art, we may think of categories such as sculpture, drawings, paintings, or photographs. Artists create their piece and bring it to life. But did you ever consider cake decorating as an art? With us today is owner and decorator Melody Velez of the Bronx MDV Custom Cakes to give us some insight about how she turns a common dessert into a work of art. Melody, welcome to the show.
Hello.
So I just want to start by asking you, how did you get into this hobby?
I've always been into art since I was young. My grandfather and my father, they were artists. And I did a lot of poetry, a lot of drawing, painting. And it just so happens I got laid off from work and needed to find something else to do to bring income into the home. And I started watching all the cake shows on TV. And I said, let me try it at home, see how it goes. And I did a few cakes for the house, and then family, friends, everyone started coming over asking for cake, and then it just turned into a big business.
And why cake decorating?
Because I'm able to express myself, artistically in a better way than just, writing and drawing, and I get to meet a lot of different people, and it's just, it fulfills every part of my creativity that I've always wanted to do, so it worked out great.
That's good. Did you know you always wanted to decorate cakes? Was that like a plan?
I went to school for criminal justice. I didn't go to school for anything artistic. And it just so happens, that this fell into my lap and it worked out for me. And I love it. It's something that I enjoy doing, so I'm glad that I got laid off from work and had to find like a different route to go.
And how and when did you find out your hidden talent for decorating?
I'd have to say at that turn point in my life, I never really dabbled in decorating cakes. I used to make, little Betty Crocker cakes and put the frosting from the can, and that was it. And then now I started watching the shows, and I said, okay, I think I can do this. It's tapping into what I had hidden inside, and it worked out great for me.
And I understand you won some awards. What awards did you win?
The Wedding Industry Best in Bronx.
Tell us about that.
It was just an online thing that, they had me submit photos and things like that. And surprisingly, they chose me for the Bronx, so that was great. And then I came out in Contemporary Bride magazine, and I didn't even know I came out in that. That was the funny part. I just happened to.
How did you find out? Did you submit yourself for that? Or?
I did, but they never got back to me, so I didn't even know. And then I Googled my name, and
everybody does that.
Yeah, it's funny, but I'm like, I like to see what people are saying about the business and stuff. And I Googled, and I saw Contemporary Bride, and when I looked, 2 of the cakes were in there, so that was pretty cool.
Would you consider what you do as an art form?
Definitely. It's definitely an art form. It takes a lot of time, a lot of patience, and you have to use so many different areas of creativity and art in order to get a really nice piece out. You have to know your colors, you have to know, how to draw, because, people want to see their cakes before, you actually do them. So I always sketch out every single cake before I actually do it, so that people know exactly what their cake's going to look like before they get it. So, it encompasses so many different areas of art. So it definitely is an art form, yeah.
And what are the different tools that you use, and what are they used for?
Well, it's funny because we do use some construction type tools, because there's sometimes you have to do structure. Just recently,
to hold the cake up,
yeah.
Right?
Just recently, we had a guitar that we did. We did a stand-up, life-size bass guitar, and my husband, thank God he's in construction, he actually built me the whole structure for it, so that I was able to go ahead and do the cake and decorate. So we do use power tools and things like that in order to get the actual structure together. And then when it comes to doing the cake portion of it, we use, they have fancy machines and stuff, but I'm more of the old-fashioned. I like to feel what I'm doing. So, we have rollers to roll out the fondant. We have different types of knives and palettes. Various
brushes too?
Yeah, various paint brushes for different, detail work. So if someone wants like hand painting on the cake, I have to have like fine brushes. Or if I'm painting an entire cake by hand, then it would be like a bigger brush. I also have an airbrush machine that I use.
I was gonna ask.
Yeah. I just started using that, and it's the most awesome thing ever. I'm glad I got it.
It saves time probably, right?
It saves time, and I'm able to do a more realistic look on the cakes. I can do a lot of shading and stuff that before I was trying to get that same look with powders. And the powders work, with brushing on the powders and stuff, but it takes longer and it's not as consistent as with the airbrush, so I'm glad I got that. And basically that's it, we use boxes for transport and stuff like that. But just the basic cake tools and a few extra stuff that people don't think you would use for cake.
Okay, and how long does it take to make a cake, like the guitar one that you made? How long did it take you?
That one took about 2 to 3 days from start to finish. Yeah.
How many hours a day?
It's hard to kind of put it into exact time, but I would say probably about 5 to 6 hours a day on that particular cake, because we don't only get one cake. In a weekend, we get probably about minimum 5 cakes to max of about 8 cakes a weekend, and all of them are extreme. Nobody wants simple anymore. So they all take a lot of time. So from like Wednesday to Sunday, we're not sleeping. We're up like, forget it. We have to drink a lot of coffee and do whatever to stay awake, but it's worth it in the end, so.
And what cake would you consider your favorite cake that you've ever made that you're most proud of? Maybe that's a hard question.
It's a very hard question because we've done so many cakes and they're so different, everybody's always challenging us every day. So this week might be, my favorite cake might come out this week, but then next week, another one I'll do and I'll be like, oh my God, I love this cake. But most recently, I would have to say would be the guitar, because that was a challenge for us. We never did anything like that before. And I also just did like a like a fantasy castle cake with like a one of those fantasy dragons.
Okay.
And so it was very detailed, and I'm into all that fantasy stuff. So that one was pretty cool. That's one of my favorites also. But there's so many, I can't even really pinpoint.
And what was the biggest project you've ever done? And what was it for? Like, what was the occasion?
The biggest project. We did a bar mitzvah cake for 300 people, I believe. And that one, it was pretty interesting because we had to do like a soccer bag and cleat and jersey and the soccer ball and everything, but it was on a really big scale. So that I would say would probably be one of the bigger, for the amount of people, bigger. But we've done some pretty extreme cakes that are like really tall also. And one of those that is one of my favorites as well is a Cat in the Hat that we did, that it was like a sculpted cake.
And that was for like a birthday?
It was for our first birthday. And that one was pretty cool. It was about maybe 3 to 4 feet tall. And it had the Cat in the Hat's face, and then on the top of it was the hat, and then the fish bowl it was really cool. So that's definitely one of the favorites and most extreme type of cakes that we've done. So
okay.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit more about MDV Custom Cakes?
Sure. I mean, it started again from me getting laid off, and it just grew into something that became a family business. My husband does the baking. I do like the hard decorating, and then we have like our family that chips in and helps out whenever they can. Like we have to color fondant or cut out circles and stuff like that. Then everyone kind of joins together and helps out. We all go on deliveries together. Like everything is very, very family oriented, even down to the process of getting the order placed. What we normally do is we have on our website where you can place an appointment for a consultation or for a cake tasting, because we do offer that as well. With the cake tasting, it's one-on-one. Everything's very one-on-one. It's very personal, because I like to know who you are, and I know every single one of my customers.
And that shows in like the end product, right?
Yeah, like I like to get the personal side of who you are so that I can incorporate it in what I'm doing. So from start to finish, it's very one-on-one. There's no like big group of people around and everyone trying to like in and out rush, none of that stuff. So what I normally do is I have you come in, I do a consultation with you where we discuss the different things that you like. You can show me maybe like 5 or 6 different cakes that you like, and we'll make one new one based out of all the little things that that you want to incorporate in the cake. And normally what I'll do is if I have time, if I'm not like super busy that day, sometimes my appointments are like back to back. And if someone's running late, I won't have the time to do it, but normally what I do is I'll sketch out the cake in front of you, I'll color it in, do everything like that, so you can see what you're getting. And it gets people more excited, because now they're not just saying, okay, I'm gonna get a cake, I don't know what it's gonna look like, but, and then I have those customers that they trust me so much that they're like, this is what I want, just do whatever you want to do.
Got it.
Yeah. And those, believe it or not, are harder than doing.
Because you have to impress them.
Right, because now it's like, okay, yeah, so, but that's pretty much the process. And then we'll deliver, if someone needs it, for an additional fee, of course, but we do deliveries. And our pickup times are pretty open, because we do it out of the house, it's home-based. So it's a little more flexible than having a storefront. And doing it that way, people are able to, okay, I need to pick up the cake at 8 o'clock because this party doesn't start till 11 at night. No problem, just let me know what time you're coming. So we try to be very flexible with everything, and we understand that, things happen, and we offer payment plans and everything like that. So we're very much for our customers, more so than trying to make money,
Okay, so we're gonna go to a break, and we'll be right back with the cake decorating demonstration.
Oh, 先生你好，歡迎光臨，等等先。唔該晒。
Brandon.
Welcome back, and once again we're here with Melody Velez from MDV Custom Cakes. So Melody, what are you going to demonstrate for us today?
I'm just going to show you some techniques on how to do these floral ruffles here and then these regular like dress type of ruffles.
Okay.
Something quick you can do at home with your family.
All right.
So just as a starter, this is an edible glue that you can make yourself buying this Tylose, which is like a gum arabic, and then a little bit of hot water. And you use this to glue the fondant to fondant. So to get started, let's take some fondant out. And by the way, fondant is a sugar paste that you can make at home using marshmallows, or you can buy in the stores already made. So basically we start with kneading the fondant. You always have to make sure it's nice and soft. And then you place it down on your surface with a little bit of cornstarch and sugar in a mixture. That keeps it from sticking to whatever you're applying it to. And then you just roll out nice and thin, but not too thin where it breaks. And once you have it nice and smooth, you take your cookie cutter.
All right.
That's fine. Just take your cookie cutter and you just cut out the circle. And always take your remaining fondant and put it back into the bag so it doesn't dry out. Make sure it's closed. And for this technique, this is what we're cutting out right now. So you take your circle and you put it on the nice side down.
On my side.
And then you cup it in your fingers and then just squeeze it together into like a floral shape. Yeah, just like that. And then you just pinch off the bottom. And what we have here is an egg crate that you can get from any egg carton. This is for a larger pack that you place them in just so that it dries a little bit.
Okay.
And then once it's dry, obviously for TV we have to do it fast, but once it's dry a little bit, about 10-15 minutes, it'll be a lot more stable. And then you just take a little bit of the glue, just a little dab, wipe off the excess, and you put it on the back, and you just stick it right onto the cake like this, and you can use the end of your paintbrush to kind of get it in really good. And you have a nice little floret on the side of the cake.
Nice.
Oh, this one fell. And if something like that happens where they fall off, you just put it back on and it happens.
Okay. Kind of like that.
Mm-hmm. If you need to use your fingers a little just to make sure it stays in, then you can do that also.
Okay.
And then for the next technique, and for this one, if you wanted to add embellishments, you can add a little bit of metallic edible paint to it as well to give it a little texture.
Okay, so this is a floral technique,
This is like the floral ruffle technique, like a fabric look. Now we're going to go into using this technique, which is more of like a dress ruffle.
Okay.
And it's the same thing. You need the fondant.
Some more. Okay.
Now with fondant, you have to move fast too, because it does dry out. So you knead it and then you roll it into kind of like a log shape. And you can do it on the surface if it's easier for you. That's good enough. And then you take your rolling pin and just kind of roll it out till it's nice and thin as well again. And then I have this here. This is for when you're doing a lot of ruffles. So you want to have something that'll cut. It's a pastry wheel.
Okay.
And basically, this is used for a lot of different things, but for fondant, we use it to cut stripes for the bottom of your board or for the sides of your cake or for this technique. So you basically would roll out like this. You can take yours and roll it out. And again, the excess goes in the bag. Okay. And just take the extra and put it away. And then these boards here, these are made for flowers or to do delicate pieces. So this is to make your edging very thin so that it looks more delicate, basically, is what it's for. So you take it and you place it on your board, and then you take the bigger part, because this is a big strip.
Okay.
And you're gonna put it half on the fondant and half on the board. And you're just gonna very lightly just kind of roll down the strip like this, and that helps to thin it out so that when you put the ruffle up, it doesn't look so thick and bulky.
And where can we contact you?
I can be contacted on my website, www.mdvcustomcakes.com. Or you can contact me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or you can call my phone direct or email me. There's so many ways to contact me.
And do you offer classes?
At this time we don't, only because we have a very busy schedule. But I am open to phone calls if you need help for anything. I speak to a lot of people and give them advice on how to do things. So basically you're just taking it and pleating it like a fabric.
Okay.
Like that. And you can just cut the excess off. And again, you take a little bit of the edible glue and just stripe it down the middle of the...
You can do that. Mine is so bad.
And then you can put it upside down like this technique here. And just make sure you pin it on real good. When you're doing the upside down technique where it's up, you have to start from the top of the cake.
Okay.
When you're doing the down technique, then you start from the bottom so that the ruffles can overlap properly. And then that's basically it.
So thank you for being on the show and thank you for the lovely demonstration. And we'll see you soon on another edition of the Bronx Journal.
Thank you.